Welcome to Mindset and Stone podcasts, where we dive deep into the most compelling books on the shelf. Join hosts Dave and Poppy as they uncover the stories, themes, and ideas that shape our understanding and inspire curiosity. Get ready to explore the big ideas that leave a lasting impact. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Mindset and Stone podcast. Today we're diving deep into a text that sits perfectly at that intersection of hard, actionable neuroscience and what many might call spirituality. The book is The Signs, The New Science of How to Trust Your Instincts by Tara Swart, MD, PhD.
And this deep dive is really customized for you, the curious learner. He's looking for a way to cut through all the noise of modern life. It's about accessing that kind of hidden wisdom that often just gets dismissed. Our mission today is to move past simple anecdotes and really unpack the scientific evidence suggesting we're all wired to perceive so much more meaning, so much more guidance than our overloaded rational minds currently allow.
Okay, so let's unpack that. The core premise the author lays out is that our high-stress, screen-dominated world has, it's basically severed our connection to our intuition, and even to our own bodies.
Yeah, and this isn't just a philosophical problem. It's showing up as a real mental health crisis. You look at the data, like from the Charity Mind, reporting that 1 in 4 people in England will experience a mental health condition each year. And for young people, the numbers have just skyrocketed.
It really points to this critical imbalance, doesn't it? We've become so reliant on data, on logic, on just cold, hard rationality. And in doing that, we started to ignore this profound knowledge that's held in our subconscious and, crucially, in our bodies.
Exactly. We've become habituated to the noise. We've lost the ability to perceive the subtle but, really meaningful messages, call them signs, synchronicities, or just pure gut instinct. They're the things that could provide real direction.
So to start, we really have to address the elephant in the room here. For signs to even be possible, for communication to exist outside of a purely physical experience, the very nature of consciousness has to be redefined. We're going to explore the scientific challenges to that materialist view, and then we're going to shift into the practical. We'll give you a clear 7-step roadmap, all grounded in neuroscience, to retune your senses, sharpen your intuition, and open yourself up to receiving that kind of meaningful guidance. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The book immediately challenges the bedrock of conventional modern science, which is the materialist view. The idea that consciousness is only a product of the physical brain.
Right. And if we can just entertain the possibility that consciousness or the mind can exist separately from the body, a concept called dualism, that logically opens the door for signs, for external guidance, for communication from what the author calls beyond.
So how do you even begin to investigate that scientifically?
You look at phenomena that occur when the physical brain is completely incapacitated. We're talking about near-death experiences, or NDEs. And the scientific definition here is critical. An NDE occurs when the body is clinically dead. That means confirmed cardiac arrest and a flatline EEG, which signifies no measurable electrical activity in the cerebral cortex. The brain is, for all intents and purposes, offline.
And the research supporting this, it's not just a few stories here and there. Dr. Bruce Grayson, a leading authority, he's amassed a database of over 1,000 meticulously vetted cases. And the consistency in these reports is, it's remarkable, globally, historically, across all cultures.
That consistency is exactly why it challenges the materialist viewpoint.
Yeah.
You see these common reports of an intense sense of peace, a clarity of thought that's actually better than normal waking consciousness, and out-of-body experiences, which happen in almost half the cases. People report seeing or hearing things that should have been physically impossible to perceive.
Okay, but that raises a big question. The skeptic would argue these are just hallucinations, right? Maybe wish fulfillment. How do you get past that? How do you verify any of it?
That's the key question, and it's where specific, verifiable anecdotes become the core evidence. This book shares this incredibly powerful story from Dr. Grayson about a patient in South Africa. This man was suffering from severe respiratory distress and had an NDE during a resuscitation.
And while he was clinically dead?
While he was clinically dead, he encountered his primary nurse, a nurse who was supposed to be away celebrating her 21st birthday. And she told him he absolutely had to return to his body and apologize to her parents on her behalf for crashing her new red MG.
Wow, that's chillingly specific.
It is. When the patient woke up, he was so agitated, he immediately told the covering nurse what he'd been told. And that nurse just ran out of the room crying. Later, the patient found out the nurse he'd encountered had, in fact, died instantly, crashing the red MG her parents had just given her, only hours before his NDE. And there was simply zero physical or audible way he could have known that specific information.
That kind of story is powerful. It moves the argument from a subjective feeling to something with objective, verifiable details. But the book points out that NDEs aren't the only challenge to the materialist view. There's also terminal lucidity.
Terminal lucidity, or TL, is just as profound. It's this sudden, temporary return of full cognitive function in patients with severe, irreversible cognitive impairment, like advanced Alzheimer's. It usually lasts just a few hours or days right before death.
So someone who hasn't recognized their family in years suddenly has a full conversation, recalls old memories, and then passes away shortly after.
Exactly. And Professor Alexander Bettini, who researches this, suggests this implies that the conscious self isn't entirely at the mercy of the brain's hardware. I mean, if consciousness were just a product of the hardware and that hardware is irrevocably damaged, how can the function suddenly come back online?
It's like the self is temporarily freed from its damaged container.
That's a great way to put it. It suggests the mind uses the brain, but isn't generated solely by the brain. And the significance of all this, you see, is that if we accept the possibility raised by NDEs and TL, that the mind and body can operate separately, it validates the whole idea that we can receive these esoteric signs as guidance in our everyday lives. It takes the author's personal experiences, like seeing robins after her husband Robin passed away, or getting that C21 RBN license plate, and moves them out of the realm of superstition. It suggests there might be a real communication network that we're just normally too busy to perceive. So if we accept that receiving signs is possible, the next logical question is, well, why don't we see them all the time? And the simple answer is that our brain, to be efficient, is a master of deletion. It aggressively filters out enormous amounts of what it deems non-essential data using things like the saliency network.
Which makes sense. I mean, we're constantly bombarded by sensory input, the feeling of our clothes, the hum of the air conditioner, things in our peripheral vision. Our brains would just completely melt down if we had to process all that consciously.
They absolutely would. One of the core non-conscious filtering systems is the ascending reticular activating system, or ARRS. Think of it as this ancient gatekeeper of awareness. The classic example is the nursing mother. She can sleep right through a loud car alarm, which the ARRS filters as non-essential, but she'll wake up instantly to the sound of her baby's lightest whimper. The filter is always prioritizing data related to survival and what we care about.
So our conscious attention is governed by what's called salience. What stands out?
The saliency network determines what's important, and it relies on a few things. First, novelty. Anything new grabs your attention. Second is filtering, directing resources to the task at hand. But the most important part for our discussion is value tagging.
What exactly is value tagging, and how does that relate to seeing signs?
Value tagging is how we assign emotional and logical importance to information. It works on a logical level, like for survival, that's a snake, pay attention, and a deeper emotional one related to our goals and desires. It's like this. When you decide you want to buy a specific model of red car, suddenly you see that exact red car everywhere.
Right. They were always there, but you just never noticed them before.
Exactly. The cars weren't new. Your intentional focus, your value tag, primed your ARRS to stop filtering them out. And this constant, non-conscious filtering is what we need to learn to overcome. The opposite of salience is, of course, habituation.
Which is the silent killer of awareness.
It really is. It's the brain deciding that something repeated, like the beautiful building you walk past every day, is no longer novel, so it's no longer salient, so it can be ignored. It dulls our ability to see beauty, and it absolutely dulls our ability to see subtle environmental messages or potential signs.
And this is where we can take back control, because the book really emphasizes neuroplasticity,
Right.
the brain's incredible lifelong ability to restructure itself and form new pathways. Our old habits and thoughts aren't set in stone.
We can absolutely leverage this, and it's core to attracting signs. You can't just erase a negative thought pathway like, I'm not worthy. But you can overwrite it. It's like a path in the snow. If you keep walking the same path, it gets deeper. But if you intentionally start walking a new, better path over and over with real emotional intensity, the old path just fades away.
So we have to intentionally prime our brains to notice what we want,
Right.
to direct that value tagging mechanism, which brings us to practical tools like action boards.
Right. Action boards are a bit like vision boards, but they shift the focus from passive wishing to intentional action and neurological priming. By regularly looking at specific images related to your goals, not just stuff you want, to actions, feelings, qualities you want to cultivate, you are intentionally training your brain's saliency network.
But doesn't that sound a bit like magical thinking? How does this concept of value tagging prove it's not just a placebo effect?
That's a great question. The neurological proof is in the fact that you are literally changing your ARS filter. It's not about the universe magically granting a wish, it's about changing your perception. If your board has images of creative collaboration, your brain, having tagged that concept as highly salient, is suddenly hyper-aware of conversations, articles, or people in your environment who can help you. You aren't creating the opportunity out of thin air. You are simply stopping your brain from filtering out the opportunity that was already there, and that priming is foundational to noticing signs.
So as we move from the brain's filters, the next step is learning how to hear the wisdom that's left behind. Our intuition. Modern life with all its data has taught us to ignore that gut feeling. But the book insists intuition isn't just some vague mental idea. It's real wisdom stored in the body, and it's accessible through the gut-brain axis.
That's because our experiences and memories get stored in our body's cells through a process known as Hebbian learning.
Hebbian learning. Can you break that down for us?
Of course. It's often summarized as neurons that fire together, wire together. Essentially, repeated experiences create stronger and stronger connections in our brain and body. So when we talk about intuition, it's often the body's instant, non-conscious recall of a previous pattern. It's this primal, fast-track wisdom that bypasses the slower analytical part of the brain.
And the number one thing blocking access to this fast-track wisdom is chronic stress.
Precisely. When we're chronically stressed, we get an overproduction of cortisol, which creates inflammation, especially in the gut. And that inflammation messes up the communication network running along the gut-brain axis.
This connection is so much more than just getting a nervous stomach, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The gut is often called the second brain. 70% of our immune cells are in the gut. When inflammation hits, it disrupts not just the gut-brain communication, but also our serotonin signaling. And when serotonin is off, we get what we call brain fog. The brain has to conserve resources just to survive, which means things like clear thinking and intuition get pushed offline.
So the first and most foundational step to seeing signs clearly has to be about optimizing our physical health.
It's the absolute prerequisite for intuition, which leads us straight to our first practical takeaway. Practical takeaway 1, optimize your gut health. This isn't about some restrictive diet. It's about diversity and nourishment. The goal is a healthy, diverse, plant-based diet. And the specific target the author gives is to consume 30 different plant-based foods a week.
30 seems like a lot, but I guess if you count every single spice, herb, nut, seed, it probably adds up pretty quickly. Why is diversity the key?
Because diversity feeds a wider range of good gut bacteria, which leads to a healthier, more resilient microbiome. And a healthy microbiome means less inflammation and better communication along that gut-brain axis. Beyond that, you want to integrate probiotic foods, kefir, kimchi, and prebiotic foods like onions and garlic. And sleep. Consistency is key. Our gut bacteria suffer from jet lag just like we do, so 7 to 9 hours of consistent sleep is essential.
Okay, so once that physical foundation is stronger, we can use specific techniques to access that stored intuitive wisdom.
Yes, and these exercises are powerful because they get you to shift your perspective. Practical takeaway 2. Access intuition with physical and mental exercises. So, to tackle a complex dilemma, the book suggests the future self exercise. First, you speak your question out loud to an empty chair, describe your situation, how you feel, then you stand up, take 7 steps back, and turn to face the chair.
And now you're looking at your present self from a distance. You imagine you're 7 years older?
Exactly. And from that perspective, you ask your future self the same question. The key is you have to say the very first thought or phrase that pops into your head. No editing, no censoring. That immediate response is often pure intuition, cutting through all the fear and doubt of the present moment.
And the second exercise is more about reconnecting the mind and body.
It is. It's the body appreciation exercise. Chronic stress makes us disconnect from our bodies. To reverse this, you start at the top of your head and work your way down, naming each body part. And for each part, you say one genuine thing you appreciate about it. Thanking your legs for carrying you, or your lungs for breathing. It just refocuses your attention inward and builds that self-trust you need to actually listen to your own intuition. So, moving beyond just intuition, to be fully open to signs, we have to actively start filtering the world so much. Most of us think we have 5 senses, but the book points out that scientists now count up to 34 different senses. All of them are constantly giving us data that we usually just ignore.
34, that's a lot. What are some of these other senses?
Well, we can group them into external senses and internal senses. Beyond the big 5, we have highly developed movement senses, which are collectively known as proprioception.
And proprioception is more than just knowing where your arm is in space, right?
Oh, much more. It includes joint position, balance, and critically, the sense of effort or force. The classic example is your coffee mug. Your body non-consciously knows the exact amount of force needed to lift it. If someone secretly swaps it with a much lighter cup, you use too much force and the drink goes flying. Your brain is doing that complex calculation all the time, completely non-consciously. That's the hidden processing power we want to tap into.
And then there are the internal senses, the interoceptive ones, that tell us what's going on inside our bodies. These are the ones that actually alert us to stress before we even consciously realize it.
Exactly. These are the staying alive senses. They monitor your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your oxygen levels. So when you feel a sudden, unexplained wave of anxiety, it might just be your internal sensors noticing a subtle spike in blood pressure. Your body sends an alert to the brain long before your cognitive mind can say, I am stressed.
And since stress just throws all those sensors into chaos, we need a way to regulate those signals immediately.
We do. If your shallow breathing is signaling danger to your brain, you need a way to signal safety back. This leads us to a really robust technique. Practical takeaway 3. Use the physiological sigh for immediate stress regulation. This technique is amazing because it directly stimulates the vagus nerve, and it's incredibly efficient at flushing out carbon dioxide, which is a key driver of anxiety symptoms.
Walk us through the steps, because there's that little extra inhale that's not very intuitive.
The steps are very specific. First, you inhale slowly and deeply through your nose. Then, at the very top of that inhale, you take a second short burst of an inhale, a little top-up breath. That second puff is crucial because it reinflates any collapsed little air sacs in the lungs. And finally, you exhale slowly through your mouth for a long 6 seconds, like a really heavy sigh. Just repeat that 2 or 3 times. It calms the system almost instantly.
That seems like an essential tool.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the sense of smell. The book presents it as this unique doorway into our emotional and memory centers.
Olfaction is totally unique. It's the only external sense that's active even when we're asleep, and its pathway to the brain is very direct. It goes straight to the limbic system, which houses the amygdala, our emotional hub, and the hippocampus, our memory center. That's why a single scent can trigger such a profound, emotionally charged memory out of nowhere.
And the cognitive benefits of stimulating this are just astounding.
They really are. Research into what's called olfactory enrichment, deliberately smelling novel scents every day, has shown it can improve cognitive and neural function in older adults by up to 226%. That's just profound evidence of the neuroplastic potential available just by using our noses. Practical takeaway 4, daily olfactory enrichment.
So, how do we do this? Do we need to buy a bunch of essential oils?
You can, but you don't have to. The key is intention and variety. You could use high-quality essential oils like rose oil, which is linked to serotonin, or bergamot, which stimulates endorphins, but simple micro-habits work just as well.
Like what? Give us an example.
Before you drink your morning coffee, just start for 10 seconds and really savor the aroma. Notice the different notes. When you're on a walk, pick a leaf and crush it between your fingers or stop and smell different flowers. By intentionally enriching your olfactory world, you're strengthening those neural pathways and making yourself much more attuned to subtle shifts in your environment, which of course includes seeing signs.
Okay, let's pivot now to how things like joy, beauty, and community aren't just, nice to haves. The book argues they are fundamental, neurochemically necessary components for accessing our highest states of awareness. It explores neuroaesthetics, confirming that engaging with art and creativity is a basic human need, not a luxury.
Absolutely. Ancient cultures didn't even have a word for art because it was just woven into everything they did. We've kind of lost that. We've prioritized efficiency and survival over thriving.
But the science is clear on the benefits. Neuroaesthetics shows that just beholding or creating art stimulates the brain to release those feel-good dose hormones.
Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. And that chemical shift is mission critical for seeing signs. When we're stressed, we're flooded with cortisol, which puts the brain into a rigid, fear-based state. But when we engage with beauty, the release of dose hormones, especially oxytocin, shifts the brain from fear to love and trust. That activates the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest mode, and that relaxed, open state is where intuition and subtle signs can finally get through.
And the longevity data on this is just wild.
It is. One study showed that people who engaged in the arts every few months had a 31% lower risk of dying. Even just once or twice a year lowered the risk by 14%. Creativity and beauty literally protect our health. Practical takeaway 5. Cultivate beauty and creativity through micro habits. We need to find ways to do this without the pressure of having to be, Picasso. The first habit is a journal challenge. Record 10 things you noticed during the day that inspired awe or beauty in you.
10 is a lot, but it forces you to actually look for it.
It could be a cool sculpture, the colors of a sunset, or just birdsong. It fine-tunes your saliency network to prioritize beauty. And the second habit is about replacement. Identify an unhelpful habit like mindlessly scrolling social media and replace it with a creative practice for 30 minutes to an hour each day. It can be anything that gets you into a flow state. Drawing, singing, cooking, or even just dancing in your living room. The process is the goal, not the product.
Shifting gears a bit, the book also hammers home that we are fundamentally social creatures. Our tribe is crucial, and loneliness is a global epidemic. It's as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Our need for connection is wired deep. We evolved in tribes. Separation meant death. And the concept of the collective unconscious, this shared reservoir of universal ideas, reinforces that we're all interconnected. If we isolate ourselves, we cut ourselves off from that shared wisdom. It makes it harder to recognize support or guidance. Practical takeaway 6, curate your tribe mindfully.
So we have to be really intentional about who we surround ourselves with. We can't connect deeply with everyone.
It starts with knowing your own values. For example, if you find yourself constantly annoyed by selfish behavior, then generosity is probably a core value for you.
Yeah.
You need to align yourself with people who share those fundamental values. It just reduces so much internal conflict and creates psychological safety.
And we can actually take steps to attract the right people.
The best way is to embody the traits you're looking for. Be the friend you want. Make a list of what you look for in people. Trustworthiness, kindness, and then ask if you're embodying those traits yourself. That proactive positivity just naturally attracts like-minded people.
And finally, there's a really powerful visualization tool for when you're facing a big challenge.
Yes, this is an emotional and psychological anchor. Practical takeaway 7, invoke mentors across time. So when you're facing a high-pressure moment, a big presentation, a tough decision, just take a moment and close your eyes. Visualize all the ancestors, mentors, teachers, or historical figures who came before you, standing shoulder to shoulder right behind you.
Feeling that collective energy and support.
You feel their accumulated wisdom and strength, and then you ask, what would they tell me right now? And you listen to that first intuitive response. It's a powerful reminder that you aren't alone. You have access to this wealth of inherited resilience and support. So today we've covered this really holistic journey that's required to perceive the deeper wisdom guiding your life. It starts by questioning the limits of consciousness, then intentionally resetting your brain's filters, regulating your stress, and optimizing your physical health through the gut-brain axis and all 34 of your senses.
The signs really are universal language. Whether they show up as a robin, a meaningful number, or just a profound gut feeling, they are the gateway to a life with more richness and purpose. And the journey to seeing them is fundamentally a journey of self-trust and just opening your mind to what's possible.
By committing to these 7 practical takeaways, from your diet and your breathing to your creative habits in your tribe, you are actively creating the neurological and psychological safety you need to notice and then confidently act upon the guidance that the universe is sending you.
So your challenge for the week, as you reflect on this deep dive, is to prioritize that first step into neuroplasticity. We want you to commit to the replacement habit. Identify 30 minutes of passive screen time and replace it with one of the creativity-boosting practices we talked about, whether that's noting 10 beautiful things or just dancing around your kitchen.
If you choose to lean into the possibility that these signs are real, that they are looking out for you and that they are guiding you, you immediately start to replace doubt and fear with love and confidence.
And that choice inevitably leads to a life of greater meaning and well-being. So ask yourself, what could the significance of signs be for you? And how could embracing that possibility transform the way you navigate the major decisions in your life? That's something worth mulling over. We'll talk to you next time for another deep dive.
We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and a spark of inspiration. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and check back for more episodes as we dive into new worlds of thought, one book at a time. Until then, keep your mind set in stone and your curiosity open. This has been a Big L Riz Media podcast, where big ideas meet lasting impressions.